I think the first full week of July sweeps is shaping up to be one of the strongest stretches we've seen from Beyond the Gates so far. The drama already felt like it was operating at sweeps level before sweeps even officially started. Between the Young and the Restless crossover, the devastating tornado, and the emotional fallout from the Kat, Eva, and liver transplant storyline, it feels like the show has been building momentum for weeks, and now it's ready to push everything even further. One of the biggest stories continues to be Bill Hamilton's obsession with Dany. To me, it doesn't even feel subtle anymore. Bill seems completely fixated on his ex-wife, and Haley is starting to notice the warning signs. When Bill and Haley spend time together at Uptown, something Bill says leaves Haley questioning why he keeps acting as if the tornado happened specifically to send him a message. Haley points out that he almost seems haunted by the experience, and I think she's beginning to realize that the real issue isn't the tornado at all. The real issue is Dany. Naomi already called Bill out for constantly thinking about Dany, and now Haley is arriving at the exact same conclusion. That feels significant. Things get even more complicated when Haley walks in on an intense conversation between Bill and Dany. I was wondering whether Bill is still replaying that elevator encounter in his mind, because he almost seems nostalgic about it, while Dany appears far more worried about the consequences. Dany's biggest concern seems to be Andre finding out about what happened, and honestly, it feels less like a question of if and more like a question of when. Meanwhile, Anita Dupree continues putting her family first, even while dealing with her own health concerns. After Vernon encouraged her to keep her appointment, Anita heads back to Garland Memorial to meet with Dr. Bauer regarding her scan results and her consultation following the lumpectomy. If Anita receives positive news from her oncologist, it could provide a much-needed moment of relief for the Dupree family after everything they've endured recently. I may be wrong, but I also couldn't help noticing the name Dr. Bauer. It immediately made me think of Jack Bauer from 24 and Tamara Tooney's long history with that series. Maybe it's coincidence, or maybe it's a quiet little tribute from the writers. Elsewhere, Ashley receives what sounds like an encouraging sign from Derek. Considering the tragedy that Derek was connected to, even if unintentionally, I've always viewed him as someone trying to do the right thing, despite carrying a heavy burden. On the Richardson side of town, Ted receives a surprising request, and I can't help wondering whether Tomas is preparing to ask for permission to marry Kat. Tomas has always struck me as traditional and serious about relationships, so asking Ted before proposing feels completely in character for him. Of course, that creates another problem, because Chelsea absolutely does not want that proposal happening. Ted's response could be interesting too. Kat has just survived one of the most emotionally exhausting experiences imaginable after discovering Eva was her half-sister, donating part of her liver, and then suffering complications herself. Part of me thinks Ted may hesitate because of everything Kat has already been through recently. On the other hand, he may simply tell Tomas that the decision belongs to Kat and Kat alone. By the end of the week, the Duprees appear to have plenty of reasons to celebrate. Anita may receive encouraging medical news. Kat appears to be recovering well after her frightening medical scare. Martin has secured victory in his primary race. And depending on how events unfold, there may even be an engagement celebration added to the list if Tomas decides to propose and Kat says yes. Then there is Leslie. Whenever Leslie makes an announcement, people have learned to brace themselves. She recently thanked Kat for saving Eva's life. Her house was destroyed during the storm. Her plans involving the hospital staff fell apart, and Ted redirected her toward making a charitable donation instead. So now the question becomes simple. What exactly is Leslie planning next? And why does it leave everyone panicking? Finally, Friday brings some sibling rivalry into the mix. Maybe we're looking at Samantha and Tyrell competing with each other. Hopefully it isn't Martin and Kat. There's also a chance the storyline involves Deanna and Donnell, especially with Deanna spending time seeking advice from people she trusts. Overall, I think this week feels like classic Sweeps storytelling. The show is balancing family victories, relationship complications, emotional fallout, and looming disasters all at the same time. And right now, Beyond the Gates feels like it has no intention of slowing down. I keep coming back to the idea that the biggest source of stress for Deanna is everything happening with Vanessa and Joey. The moment she overheard Joey talking about running a bath for Vanessa after all the tornado chaos, Deanna immediately got angry with her mother. And honestly, I understood why. To me, Deanna has absolutely no trust in Joey, and I think her instincts are probably right. In the same way that Kat always seemed to be correct about Eva and Leslie, Deanna feels like the character whose gut is pointing in the right direction. Since Joey was responsible for Doug McBride's death so he could have Vanessa to himself, every bit of suspicion aimed at him feels justified. That is why I was especially curious when Joey appeared to have some kind of proposition for Vanessa. Maybe I am wrong, but I immediately wondered whether he might ask her to move in with him while keeping the family home she shared with Doug. That would allow the kids to hold on to the place where they grew up and preserve those memories of their father. Looking ahead to the week of June 29th through July 3rd, the first full week of July sweeps should bring a major increase in momentum across almost every storyline. By then, I expect both Kat and Eva to be out of the hospital. One moment that really stood out to me was Kat telling Eva that they still were not sisters, despite the fact that part of Kat now literally lives inside Eva after the liver donation. Even after Kat's emotional dream and what felt like a genuine shift in perspective, I never expected her to suddenly embrace Eva with open arms. Kat is not naive. I think the experience may have opened the door to tolerance and coexistence, but not immediate forgiveness or closeness. To me, this feels less like reconciliation and more like the beginning of a long and difficult process. And while Kat may eventually accept Eva's place in the family, I don't think she is anywhere near accepting Leslie. Honestly, I cannot blame her for that. Speaking of Leslie, she has decisions of her own to make. I keep wondering what happens with the house she was building. Does she start over and create something more grounded and normal? Or does she double down on the over-the-top vision she originally had? The entire project felt like such a reflection of her personality that I am fascinated to see where the writers take it. Meanwhile, Bill cannot seem to let go of what happened with Dany in that elevator. Part of me could absolutely see Bill making the mistake of confiding in Andre Richardson, or even attempting to sabotage Dany's marriage in hopes of winning her back. The dynamic between Bill and Dany reminds me of an addiction metaphor. Dany knows Bill is bad for her, and she understands exactly why that relationship damaged her life. But there is still a part of her that remembers the excitement and intensity of what they had together. It feels similar to an alcoholic looking back fondly on something they know nearly destroyed them. Andre, on the other hand, seems healthier and more stable for her future. I also wonder whether Haley will begin noticing Bill's renewed interest in Dany. If she does, it could make her increasingly desperate to secure her financial future before Bill walks away from her completely. The entire long con she has been running with Randy Parker may ultimately collapse, leaving her with nothing to show for it. Kat's future with Tomas is another storyline that has me questioning where things are headed. If he proposes, I genuinely do not know whether she says yes. Part of me thinks she may reject the ring, at least for now. I also wonder whether Chelsea could become the voice of reason and encourage Kat not to rush into an engagement immediately following so much tragedy and emotional upheaval. Even if Kat loves Tomas, timing matters, and Chelsea may believe that this is not the moment for such a major decision. Chelsea and Ted seem to be enjoying a period of relative peace now that Leslie has backed off. But I find myself questioning how long that calm can realistically last. Leslie's history suggests that her moments of self-control rarely last forever. On another front, I could see Isaiah and Eva taking an important step forward in their relationship after everything they have endured. Isaiah was absolutely devastated at the possibility of losing Eva, and he refused to leave her side until he knew she would survive. Experiences like that tend to change relationships permanently. While I do not see a proposal happening anytime soon, moving in together feels entirely possible. Something simple and low-key like sharing a home would still represent a significant turning point for them. I am also interested to see whether Darlene Hawthorne follows through on her promise to make a greater effort with Eva. It was a meaningful moment, but promises in soap operas often face difficult tests. Beyond all of that, there are still several lingering questions waiting for answers. What happens next with Vanessa, Joey, and Deanna's growing distrust? How will Ashley continue processing her grief? Where do things go between Ashley and Grayson from here? And perhaps most importantly, has Heather really left town, or is she simply waiting in the shadows for the perfect moment to reappear? If soap operas have taught me anything, it is that characters who disappear under mysterious circumstances rarely stay gone for long. Watching the aftermath of the tornado unfold, I keep thinking that Fairmont Crest feels like a community trying to convince itself that life can return to normal, even while everyone is carrying fresh scars from what happened. The biggest source of relief comes from Eva's recovery. After everything surrounding the liver transplant, finally seeing signs of improvement feels like a victory, not just for her, but for everyone who fought to keep hope alive. To me, that recovery changes the emotional atmosphere of the entire story. For the first time in a while, the people closest to Eva can breathe again. What surprised me even more was Leslie's reaction. I honestly did not expect to see her soften toward Kat after everything that happened between them. Hearing her thank Kat for saving Eva's life already felt significant, but her promise to retire the nickname Kitty Cat almost felt symbolic. It was as if the storm had forced old enemies to reconsider what really matters. Of course, in soap operas, peace rarely lasts for long. Leslie's mysterious announcement immediately catches my attention because the spoilers suggest it sends shockwaves throughout Fairmont Crest. I keep wondering whether this revelation is personal, medical, financial, or connected to the tornado itself. Whatever the truth turns out to be, it feels obvious that Leslie is about to become one of the central figures driving the next phase of the story. Another storyline that stands out involves Joey and Vanessa. Joey approaching Vanessa with an unexpected proposal feels like a major turning point. Whether this turns out to be a business opportunity, a personal commitment, or something even bigger, I get the sense that their relationship has reached a crossroads. Surviving the plasma ring crisis and the tornado together has brought them closer than ever, and moments like these often redefine couples in daytime drama. At the same time, I think the writers are smart not to ignore Deanna's perspective. While Vanessa may have found happiness, Deanna is still trying to reconcile her mother's new relationship with her loyalty to her father. To me, her struggle feels realistic. Children often become the emotional casualties of changes they never asked for, and her search for advice from someone she trusts suggests she is trying to make sense of feelings that are difficult to express. Even with all the uncertainty surrounding Fairmont Crest, there are finally reasons to celebrate. Eva and Kat have made it through surgery. Anita has received encouraging news regarding her cancer treatment. Tomas is reportedly preparing to propose to Kat. Any one of those developments would be enough to justify a celebration, but together they create something even more meaningful. A reminder that hope can survive even in the middle of disaster. I think that may be the real theme of this episode. The tornado changed lives, damaged homes, and left emotional wreckage behind. But it did not destroy the community's ability to come together when it matters most. Those moments of happiness feel earned, precisely because the characters have endured so much to reach them. Still, this is Fairmont Crest, and peace rarely stays peaceful for very long. The tease about competition between siblings immediately makes me curious. The spoilers refuse to reveal who is involved, which almost makes the mystery more interesting than the rivalry itself. I find myself wondering whether this conflict will be playful and harmless, or whether it will expose deeper insecurities that have been simmering beneath the surface for some time. Either way, the rivalry adds another layer of tension to an episode already packed with emotional reunions, life-changing decisions, and shocking revelations. By the end of the hour, I suspect viewers will walk away with the same feeling many residents of Fairmont Crest are experiencing themselves: relief that the worst may be over, combined with the uneasy realization that the next storm could already be on the horizon. I have to say, after watching all of this unfold, I'm not completely convinced by Dany's insistence that Bill is nothing more than the father of her children now. She may truly believe Andre is the only man in her heart, but Naomi's reaction told me she isn't buying it either. And honestly, after hearing that Bill has apparently been fantasizing about his favorite ex, I can understand why Naomi looked so skeptical. What really stood out to me was how quickly the conversation shifted once Ashley showed up needing Naomi's support. Ashley asking whether Derek would forgive her for reconnecting with Grayson felt incredibly heavy. To me, that guilt has been hanging over her for a long time. Naomi's response was surprisingly compassionate, making it clear that neither she nor Derek would blame Grayson for what happened. By the end of their conversation, Ashley deciding to give Grayson another chance felt like a huge moment, especially with her condition that he never lie to her again. Meanwhile, the situation between Bill and Haley feels like a disaster waiting to happen. Haley noticed immediately that Bill's interest in pretty much everything, food, intimacy, life in general, has changed since the tornado. Bill blamed the emotional aftermath, which may be true, but Haley clearly suspects there is more going on beneath the surface. Her comment about Dany using the widow card if something had happened to Andre revealed exactly how threatened she still feels by Bill's ex-wife. That insecurity only became more obvious when Bill started talking about a fantasy he had always wanted to act out. The setup felt ominous from the start. Then Dany marched into Bill's office, furious over what she had learned from Naomi. Her anger wasn't really about jealousy, at least not entirely. I think it was about fear. Dany made it clear she refuses to let Bill destroy her life for a second time because of his inability to let go of the past. At almost the exact same moment, Haley was venting to Randy over mimosas and practically admitting she would rather kill Bill than sleep with him. That may have been an exaggeration, but it spoke volumes about the state of their marriage. Randy suggested that Bill still wanted Dany, and Haley's confidence immediately kicked in as she insisted she was the only woman who could keep her husband interested. Then came the scene that felt straight out of classic soap opera chaos. Haley walked into Bill's office just as tensions exploded between him and Dany. Bill grabbing Dany's arm to stop her from slapping him was already dramatic enough, but the real twist came when Dany noticed Haley's outfit, or more accurately, the lack of one underneath that coat. That was the moment everything clicked for Dany. Bill wasn't creating some exciting new fantasy with his wife. He was recycling an old memory he had already shared with Dany years earlier. Her final line about nothing ever topping the original may have been cruel, but I have to admit it landed perfectly. If Haley was hoping to feel special in that moment, Dany made sure she walked away feeling like a substitute. Over on the Kat and Eva front, I was wondering if the liver donation storyline would finally soften Kat's attitude toward her sister. Apparently not. Kat made it crystal clear that Eva will never be her real sister in her eyes, which honestly makes me think this feud is nowhere near finished. Even Chelsea's attempt to honor Kat by naming her new bag design after her was rejected in favor of supporting actual heroes instead. At the same time, Kat insisting she isn't remotely ready for marriage was interesting, considering Tomas was literally asking Ted for permission to marry her. Ted's reaction felt incredibly realistic to me. He clearly has reservations, but he also recognizes that his daughter has to make her own choices. Then came Ted's bombshell announcement that Kat wouldn't be going to Tokyo because she was grounded. That punishment didn't just cost her an important presentation. It also ruined her plans to travel to Puerto Rico with Tomas and meet his family. I may be wrong, but this feels like one of those moments that could create serious tension between Kat and both the men in her life. The storyline involving Anita was probably the most uplifting part of the episode. Hearing that her scans came back clear and that she could move forward with surgery felt like a genuine victory after everything she has faced. Of course, the writers couldn't let us relax completely. Naomi is still hiding the fact that she underwent testing for the BRCA gene, and that secret feels far too important to stay buried forever. Naomi is still hiding the fact that she underwent testing for the BRCA gene, and that secret feels far too important to stay buried forever. Meanwhile, Tomas planning a welcome home party for Kat sounded sweet, but Anita immediately stepping in to host it at the mansion makes me think this event could become the setting for the next major explosion. And then there's Leslie. The preview hinted that she's preparing some sort of announcement, and I honestly can't decide which version of Leslie we're about to get. Is this going to be the supposedly new and improved Leslie trying to turn over a new leaf? Or is this the version of Leslie who lives to push buttons and create chaos? Knowing soap operas, I think we all know which option sounds more likely. I think Friday's episode of Beyond the Gates could end up being one of those chapters where nearly every storyline collides at once. And I'm especially curious about what Leslie Thomas is about to do next. After Eva's medical crisis, Leslie has appeared to turn over a new leaf. She has talked about changing her ways, and Kat's decision to donate part of her liver to save Eva certainly gave everyone a powerful reminder of family, sacrifice, and second chances. To me, that should have been the kind of moment capable of changing someone forever. But then comes the tease that Leslie is about to make an announcement that sends everyone into a panic. That immediately makes me wonder if her transformation is really as genuine as it seems. If the news were positive, why would people react with fear or chaos? Maybe I am wrong, but it feels like something happens that pushes Leslie back toward old habits. Or perhaps she has been keeping a major secret hidden all along. With Leslie, it is always difficult to know where redemption ends and manipulation begins. Meanwhile, another mystery is unfolding at the casino as Joey Armstrong prepares to make Vanessa McBride an unexpected proposal. I was wondering whether this is a business arrangement, a personal offer, or maybe something that blurs the line between the two. Joey rarely makes moves without a strategy behind them, so the fact that Vanessa is reportedly caught completely off guard makes the situation even more intriguing. Whatever he puts on the table, it sounds like it could reshape their relationship moving forward. Elsewhere, Deanna McBride continues to wrestle with her feelings. Her mother's relationship with Joey remains a sore spot, and it seems the frustration and resentment have not faded with time. This week, Deanna turns to someone she trusts for advice and support. The bigger question is whether she is truly ready to hear what that person has to say. Sometimes characters seek advice when they already know the answer, but simply are not prepared to accept it. I wonder if this could be one of those moments for Deanna. Holding on to anger can feel easier than moving forward, even when reconciliation is possible. Then there is the Richardson family, who finally appear to have reasons to celebrate after weeks of turmoil. Eva and Kat survived life-threatening surgeries and have been given another chance at life. Martin is enjoying the momentum of his recent election victory. For once, the family has an opportunity to focus on joy instead of crisis. Of course, this is soap opera storytelling, so peace rarely lasts for long. The spoilers hint that two siblings will find themselves competing during the celebrations, and my attention immediately goes to Samantha and Tyrell. Hopefully, it stays playful and lighthearted, because family rivalries have a habit of escalating when emotions are already running high. Overall, I think Friday's episode has all the ingredients of a classic soap hour. Shocking announcements, unexpected offers, emotional confrontations, family victories, and just enough uncertainty to keep everyone guessing. Fairmont Crest may be preparing for a celebration, but if these spoilers are any indication, the drama is far from over. I think it's pretty remarkable that Beyond the Gates has barely wrapped up the excitement of its historic crossover with The Young and the Restless, and is already charging straight toward July sweeps, with even more chaos waiting for Fairmont Crest. To me, the biggest storyline heading into the next couple of weeks is still the fallout from Bill and Dany's unexpected moment in that elevator during the tornado. What makes this situation so interesting is that both of them seem to be processing it in completely opposite ways. Dany appears horrified by what happened. She looks haunted by it, almost as if she wishes she could erase the entire experience and pretend it never happened. Bill, on the other hand, seems to be viewing the situation through nostalgia. Instead of regret, he appears to be reliving the emotions and memories that moment stirred up for him. I was wondering whether this difference in perspective could end up creating an even bigger problem than the elevator encounter itself. Bill's inability to let go of the past could easily become a threat to Dany and Andre's marriage. If he continues revisiting those old feelings, it would not be surprising if he starts crossing boundaries or intentionally creating situations that pull Dany back into his orbit. At the same time, Haley may be getting closer to discovering the truth. The spoilers suggesting that Haley walks in on Bill and Dany during an argument immediately caught my attention. Even if she doesn't hear a direct confession, sometimes body language says more than words ever could. If she senses unresolved feelings between them, or realizes that Bill is emotionally drifting back toward Dany, I think that could completely change her plans moving forward. There has already been speculation surrounding Haley's long game and her possible intentions toward Bill. If she believes there is a genuine risk of losing him to Dany, I can easily imagine her becoming more desperate and making much more dangerous decisions much sooner than expected. Elsewhere, Anita finally appears to be receiving some positive news, and honestly, Fairmont Crest could use a little relief after everything that has happened recently. My guess is that this good news is related to her health, which would allow her to shift her attention back toward caring for the people around her. There certainly isn't a shortage of family members who need support right now. Kat is still recovering emotionally and physically after her liver donation to Eva, and Martin has also been dealing with the aftermath of recent events. Anita stepping back into the role of caretaker feels very natural for her character, and I think those quieter family moments may end up carrying just as much emotional weight as the larger dramatic storylines. Then there is Kat herself, who may soon find herself facing one of the biggest decisions of her life. Ted previously revealed that he planned to propose and had already purchased a ring, so it feels increasingly likely that a proposal is right around the corner. The question is whether Kat is actually ready for that step. Part of me thinks Ted's desire to move quickly comes from fear rather than certainty. Nearly losing someone can make people want guarantees that life simply doesn't provide. And I wonder if Ted is confusing gratitude and relief with readiness for marriage. Several people around them, including Chelsea and Naomi, already seem to believe he is acting emotionally after almost losing Kat. Looking at the situation from Kat's perspective, I could understand if she feels pressured. After all, she recently struggled with feeling pushed towards surgery, even when everyone believed it was the right decision. Marriage is an even bigger commitment, and she may react very differently if she feels that circumstances are making the decision for her, instead of allowing her to make it on her own terms. So while wedding bells may be a possibility, I am not convinced a yes is guaranteed. If anything, I think the next 2 weeks could end up testing several relationships at once, with old feelings resurfacing, secrets threatening to emerge, and major life decisions arriving much faster than some of these characters are prepared for. I think Friday's episode of Beyond the Gates could end up being much bigger than it initially looks, especially because everything seems to revolve around Leslie and whatever announcement she's preparing to make. At first, I wondered if she might announce that she's stepping away from the clinic, or even shutting it down, which would obviously send shockwaves through the community. But after everything that happened with Eva, I feel like Leslie genuinely believes she has changed, at least to some extent. Saving Eva seems to have shifted something in her perspective, and I could see her wanting to honor what Kat did for her daughter. Expanding the clinic or creating a donor assistance program would make sense on paper. Those would be practical ways to give back. But this is Leslie we're talking about, and subtle has never really been her style. That's why I keep coming back to one possibility that feels very much like something she would do: entering politics. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I can absolutely picture Leslie convincing herself that running for office is her chance to reinvent her image and prove she can be a force for good. Whether it's a mayoral campaign or even pursuing Martin Richardson's soon-to-be vacant congressional seat, it feels exactly like the kind of dramatic, larger-than-life move she loves making. From Leslie's perspective, she'd probably see it as redemption. From the Dupree's perspective, it would be terrifying. The idea of Leslie suddenly holding political power and authority over people she's clashed with in the past feels like a nightmare scenario for that family. And honestly, I think that's exactly why this theory makes so much sense. Meanwhile, Joey appears ready to step up for Vanessa in a major way. After everything she's endured recently, he seems determined to give her a chance to breathe and escape the stress for a while. My first thought was a beach getaway, or maybe a ski resort, although Puerto Rico feels unlikely given the painful memories connected to Doug. Still, I don't think Joey's surprise will simply be a vacation. I have a feeling he'll make it something bigger by including Vanessa's children and turning it into an opportunity for the family to reconnect. In Vanessa's eyes, that kind of gesture would probably mean everything. The complication, of course, is Deanna. I can't imagine Deanna being excited about spending quality time with Joey, especially considering she's become more convinced than ever that something about him isn't right. That storyline continues to fascinate me because Deanna's suspicions are becoming harder and harder for other people to take seriously. She's operating almost entirely on conversations with Doug's ghost, or at least what everyone else would interpret as grief manifesting itself through visions and memories. Unfortunately for her, that's not exactly evidence. Because of that, I think it makes sense that she turns to Donnell. Out of everyone around her, he's probably the person she trusts the most, and the one most likely to listen without immediately dismissing her concerns. She managed to plant seeds of doubt about Joey before, so she may believe she'll finally convince Donnell to fully join her side once she reveals that she's been communicating with their father. The problem is that Donnell may hear that confession very differently than she expects. Rather than validating her experiences, I think his reaction will come from a place of concern. Instead of believing Doug is truly reaching out, he'll likely wonder whether Deanna needs different treatment or additional therapy to help her process everything she's carrying emotionally. Even if his intentions are good, I don't see Deanna taking that well. To her, it will probably feel less like concern and more like betrayal. And if that's where this story is heading, we may be watching the beginning of a serious fracture between the twins, one that could end up being much harder to repair than either of them realizes. The June 25th episode really felt like one of those days in Beyond the Gates where old emotions refused to stay buried, no matter how hard everyone tried to move forward. Watching it, I kept thinking that almost every storyline came down to one question. Can people actually leave the past behind, or does it always find a way back into the room? Dany certainly believes she has moved on. During breakfast with Naomi, she makes it clear that Bill belongs in her past, and that Andre is the only man she cares about now. To her, that chapter is closed. But then Naomi reveals something Dany never expected to hear. She recently caught Bill fantasizing about her. I think that revelation changes everything for Dany. Suddenly, what she thought was ancient history becomes very present again. Meanwhile, Haley is already sensing that something feels off with Bill. Since the tornado, he has seemed distant, uninterested in food, uninterested in intimacy, and generally disconnected. Bill insists it is because he almost lost Martin and Kat, which is certainly understandable, but Haley seems to suspect there is more beneath the surface. Then comes the confrontation at Bill's office, and this scene may have been one of the most uncomfortable moments of the episode. Dany storms in furious, accusing Bill of holding on to feelings for her and potentially sabotaging her relationship with Andre because he cannot let go of the past. The argument escalates quickly, and for a moment it looks as though Dany is about to slap him before Bill stops her. And then Haley walks in. The timing could not have been worse. The moment Dany sees Haley standing there in lingerie beneath a coat, she immediately understands exactly what is happening. Bill has recreated one of the fantasies he once shared with Dany. That was the real sting of the scene. It was not jealousy, it was recognition. Dany's final remark to Haley, that she could never recreate the original, felt less like an insult and more like a reminder that some relationships leave fingerprints that never completely disappear. Whether Dany wants Bill back or not almost feels irrelevant. The history between them still exists, and now everyone in that triangle knows it. Elsewhere, Kat's return home does not magically fix everything either. Her relationship with Eva remains distant, and Kat makes it clear that she does not see Eva as a real sister. I was wondering whether surviving the tornado would soften Kat's perspective, but at least for now, those emotional walls remain firmly in place. Chelsea's gesture of naming a handbag after Kat was genuinely sweet, but Kat's response said a lot about where her head is after everything that happened. Rather than celebrating herself, she wants recognition directed toward real heroes instead. Tomas, meanwhile, decides it is time to take the next step and asks Ted for permission to marry Kat. Ted's reaction felt realistic to me. He clearly has concerns and reservations, but ultimately he chooses his daughter's happiness over his own doubts and gives Tomas his blessing. Unfortunately, that happy moment is quickly followed by disappointing news when Kat learns that while she has been medically cleared to attend her Tokyo presentation, she cannot do additional travel afterward. That means no trip to Puerto Rico and no opportunity to meet Tomas's family for now. I have a feeling this restriction could become more important later than it initially seems. Ashley and Grayson's storyline was quieter, but it may end up being one of the more meaningful developments of the episode.